Hey, I know I've talked in the past about how to run an Ableton multi-track set for our musicians in sound, but I wanted to redo it in a format that you can go back and listen to or rewatch, and if you run into an issue. So here is an Ableton Live set. There are, of course, a couple other things that you could use to run tracks in the future if you want to look into them. Playback, Prime are both apps that you can use from an iPad. Of course, those couldn't output from the iPad to our normal DANTE network, which is how we run the tracks, but they could run from the iPad into a splitter cable that has two outputs like we used to do, with the left being tracks and the right being click and guide. That's an option. There's other also more things available to those than just that, but that's basically how it would have to be run unless you pay subscriptions sort of stuff. And then there's AbleSet, which is also something that you can buy that would do a similar thing of allowing you to control Ableton from an iPad to run tracks and do a bunch of custom interesting things. So that's something to look at in the future if you're interested. But here's Ableton. This is how it will probably open and how it will look when you open it, default. And so what we want to do first is to get in the proper view. We don't use this view to run tracks. We usually use the session view, and to get to there you have to click tab. So now that we click tab, we have this. You may or may not have this menu open on the left side. When I'm setting up my set, I like to have it open so I can access this, but when I'm actually using the tracks at a service, I usually close it just because I don't need them. But you can have MIDI tracks here, which are basically computer tracks full of digital information, not actual sound, and you also have audio tracks here. The first thing that we want to do is, I guess this will basically be a streamlined way for us to set up tracks. I'm not going to give you the deep details and whys of how we do it, but just the basics of how to get it done. And that should be enough for the time being. But first thing we want to focus on is our outputs. We don't really need to worry about inputs because we're just running multi-tracks, but we do want to manage our output and make sure our output is set up right. So if you go to the top right where this number percentage is, that's our CPU percentage that's being shown real time. But we don't really care about that right now. What we want to do is click configure audio. No, I've got it set now to the right setting, but it'll usually look like this. Okay. So again, inputs not that necessary. Outputs is important. So once you plug in the connector to plug into the DANTE network, the Ethernet cable that we run our tracks through, you will get, if it's set up right, you will get this DANTE virtual sound card to pop up. A couple things to check if that's not popping up for you are these two apps right here, DANTE Controller and DANTE Virtual Sound Card. Now I've got them both pulled up right now. The first thing is DANTE Virtual Sound Card. Now that is going to create a DANTE network. You can have the cable run and everything, but until you activate the sound card here, you're not going to actually be sending sound and actually starting up the network. So when you start it up, it'll look like this. We only need to really focus on this page. We only run 8 channels right now for tracks, so it's fine to keep this on 8x8. We don't really need to mess with the latency. And then this is the only option here for network interface. That's the USB that we're connecting to create the network. And then we just click start, and that will establish the DANTE network. And so now it should pop up here. And we can do that, but we also have to tell it where to go. So if we open up the DANTE controller, it should be set up already. And normally I don't ever even have to open this up. It's already just set, and the network knows exactly how to run. But here we've got this DN DANTE on both sides, the receivers and transmitters. That is the DANTE card that is in the X32 that we plug into the board with. And then we have the computer. So if we open this up, this is from my computer is transmitting to right here. My computer is transmitting to the DANTE card. That's the big thing that we need to worry about. And we've got 8 channels, but it knows the DANTE card can receive 32. So we have to choose which of the 32 channels we want to use, and we have it set up to do 9 through 16. So that'll be set up. In the past, I have used the DANTE card to record on my computer, and I've got that set up to record on channels 15 and 16 of the board's outputs into my computer, and that just gives me the main left and right recording. So I have done that in the past just to get a clean audio recording of the whole service. Anyways, this should all be set up now. We can exit out. Let's import a song into our set. To do that, we want to first get access to our multi-tracks folder. So I have compiled a list of multi-tracks that we have access to for the church. So if we go over to the left side in this far left panel, down in the places, I have my multi-tracks folder already here. So there's always this folder here that I can have quick access to all the tracks. Now, if you want to get access to that folder and have it there, click Add Folder, and you just go to where the folder is. Mine is on my desktop and multi-tracks, and I would click Open, and then the folder would just appear over here, and then it would just be always there. Let's go to after all these years. So I've found after all these years here, it'll show me the key and the BPM usually. In order to actually open the track, I go to this multitrack.als and double click it, and I open up the file. The .als is the file location, and it should have my output right still, but I can always double check. Yep, still got the virtual sound card. I can click over my cursor. If you click on one of these tracks, it'll just click on the highlight the track. But if you go under it and click on where you want to start, then it will go to that location, click spacebar, and it'll play. And it's actually playing through the sound system now, so you might be able to hear it. The problem is I don't have the individual tracks run right. So everything is coming through the mains, which is on the board the track left and right. So just 1 and 2. What we want to do is we want to change the individual outputs for the tracks. So most of these tracks are color coordinated, which works perfectly for us because the color coordinated chunks are the individual outputs that we send to. So white is usually the click and the guide. So if we highlight those, click one and shift click onto the other, open up using these arrows, we can see more detailed. Now, This does not show the inputs and outputs, which is not good. And I gotta remember how to show that. If I go to view and you're looking for I/O, pardon my lack of preparedness. I should be in view. Mixer controls. No, that's not what we need. We're not using the mixer. Oh boy. Where is this? This is one thing that I always... There we go. Arrangement track controls in/out. When we do that, we get the in and out settings. So we've got our tracks highlighted. We go to this lower bar, which is the output. Top is input, bottom is output. We click external out, and then click and guide are always on 8. We keep going down to drums. All the red things go to 7, and as we go we can collapse these. The bass channels go to channel 6. The guitars, blue, go to channels 3 and 4. We have the guitars stereo, and also the piano in green go to 1 and 2. And lastly, the vocals all go to channel 5. Now, if you're not seeing these numbers, that's because the output configuration got messed up. So we go back to our output settings, output configuration. It should look like this. We should have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 clicked on for stereo, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 for mono. We don't want it like this because then we're going to have extra outputs that we don't need that are mono. We just want these 4 highlighted. And then you can go back and correctly put. Now you might see this markers channel up here. This is technically a MIDI channel, but it is not, it doesn't contain any information. This is just to tell me what place these flags go and what section of the song we are. So if I play this now, you can see on the side there are green bars, which means the sound is coming out. You can hear the sound in these headphones that are connected to the so that's it's being routed correctly. That should be good. When I'm building a set, it's always easiest to start with a already made track session. So now that I have this, I want to save it as a copy, and then I'll add my other songs onto it. So I go to File, Save Live Set As, and then I'll change my name to the date, usually, and I'll put it in my multi-tracks folder or wherever you want it to be. Click Save. So now I'm editing this, not the original track. Okay, I want to go to another song. We are going to do At the Name. At the Name is in 76.5 BPM. Very different, I know. So I will create a marker here. the way you create a marker is by clicking Set up here, and it'll put a flag. You can also bind a key on your keypad to that flag button, which I like to do. The way you get to your key bindings is by holding Command and K. Now, this track already had a bunch of them, but I will delete those so we can start fresh. Here's the bindings that I like to do. First of all, I like to click this yellow arrow and click equals. That makes it follow your cursor, basically. The session, as it plays, will follow your cursor. The other one is I like to click this loop button right here and make that L. I go down here to delete, which is the flag button, and I click K. No, I don't click K. I click semicolon, and then the arrows, I use the comma and the period. I will also go into my songs, and I'll start the beginning of the song with a number. So this is my first song, I go to number 1. For my second song, which is going to start here, I'll go to number 2. And when I get the third one in, I'll go to number 3. The next thing we need to do is we need to change the tempo appropriately so that the next song will fit onto the grid. So you want to click on your keypad the letter A, and that will change this main box a little bit. And we want to make sure this says mixer and song tempo. Now, this is the range of the tempos it's displaying. Now, if we bring that down to 60, you can see this line here. They went crazy on the end of the song with different BPMs, but we don't need to worry about that. We would just want to change the BPM to one that matches the song that we're going to now. So we want to click somewhere before the new song to create a point, and then we're going to click a little bit later, just before our song, or it can even be on the line. We want to move this second dot up to the correct BPM. So one way to do that is to change your range to where it actually matches exactly the BPM. So we're lower than the song that we're going to, so I'm going to change it to 76.5 and higher. So it's going to change the range. Now all I have to do is drag this to the very top, and now everything after this point is set to 76.5 BPM. Now what I want to do is click A again. I'll drag this down to collapse it. I'll go to at the name. This one doesn't have a multi-track name. It's not named multi-tracks, basically it's named the song, which is fine. Some songs are named differently. I will click that and drag it down. Now, unfortunately with Ableton, you can't drag things as easily as I wish you could. Everything will drag just downwards and then align with the first edge of the song or the session. So what we want to do is highlight all these tracks that we just added in. We're going to Control X to cut, go to where our song is going to be at this next marker, and then Control V to paste. Now if you wanted to, you could keep all the tracks separately, just like this, but you have to go through and change all of the outputs again for all these. What I like to do is I like to take the tracks and I like to drag them up to the pre-existing tracks. So I just align them all. If there's not one, I just pass over it and deal with it later. Synth bass goes here. I don't know why this synth FX is here. We know it's green, so it should really be down here. But acoustic guitar is not there, so I push it up. Electric guitar 1 through 3. Push that up. And I'm just merging these two songs together in a way that makes sense. Keys 3, synth effects. We don't really need the lead vocals one, so we can just delete that. And then background vocals will go in the background vocals. Now we can go over here to this extra stuff that we don't need and delete it all. So we will have to go through here, go to our external outs, click the right ones to add them to the correct output, which can be a bit of a chore at times, but it's not too bad. Usually. All right, so now we have 2 songs set, and we can run them perfectly fine. Now, you'll just repeat this process to go do the third one. Sometimes I like to put them really close together, and you can see down here actually how much time it is taking, so I'll use that time to kind of judge how much space needs to be there. The other thing is this first song is actually being looped right now by default, so we don't want that to be on. We can see that this loop button is highlighted, so we're going to click that off. We can see that this section gets unhighlighted. When it's on, it's solid. When it's off, it just fades. Now we can move that loop around to loop whatever we want. It will loop indefinitely until we give it some more command to either skip over the loop or just turn the loop off. So we can do that with L, or say I have just one section looping. I want to loop this chorus here, and I've got it on. I can just say I want it to just skip over this. I'll use my arrow keys, which is the ones that we map to go to the next marker, and I'll just push it to the next one, and it just goes like that. A quick note about the marker keys, to the arrow keys that we use to switch between markers like this, which is our comma and period. You saw right there that it just switched as soon as I clicked it. I'm just zooming around everywhere immediately. We usually don't want it to be like that. We usually want it to change just at the end of a measure, so it's smooth and makes sense. So if we click this drop down and set it to 1 bar, that is usually what we want to do. And then now at the end of this 126 measure up here, it will go to the next automatically. Actually, that's something to note. Because it's a loop, you have to actually go 2 sections ahead. So if I can help it, I don't use the loop thing. I will just manually, in the time I know, like in real time, just push the arrow key to go back if I know we're going to loop something, or I'll change the track. Now if we're doing a loop, if we're adding just a click loop that's not a track, we'll come out here, and first thing I like to do is I like to drag my loop to where the loop is going to be. So if we don't have a track for something, we just use a loop. I'll set a session marker 1 measure before. I'll turn my loop on. You can push the button or click the letter L if you have it programmed to that. And then I have a folder of loops here. So we're at 76.5. Let's just say that that's the proper tempo of the next song. So I'm going to want to find one that matches that tempo and feel. So I can click it, and I can hear it. You probably can't hear it very well, but I can hear it. And just preview it. When I find the one I want, I will pull it over and bring it over here. Now I can put it onto my percussion channel if I want, because that makes sense. And you could do this just as a loop, but I like to add a few more steps. I also have a click folder, which are just some pre-made clicks. So I'll go to my 80 BPM one, since that's pretty similar. I'll add that here. You can see that it's not locked on. And so, annoyingly, we need to change the BPM of this specific track. So all I did was I double clicked on the track, and that brings it up. Now we see that this track is in 80 BPM over here, but it thinks it's in 120. So we change this 120 to 80, and now it looks a little bit better. It's not quite lined up, but we can do that a few different ways. We can zoom in here to the very beginning. We can change this arrow to where it's right on. So now it is, or we can just move this track around to where it matches. And I will bring this up to click. I will go to the end of my loop, and I will Command E, which splits this track at my cursor. And I'll just delete the rest since we don't need the click after the loop. Another thing that we could do is add some like intro guides to tell us the count when we're supposed to come in. So we could go to our click and guide samples folder, English guides, song selections, and there's a 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we play that 2, 3, 4. Perfect. And so that lines up, and that gives us just a good intro. The last thing I like to do is to put a pad on my loops. If it's a slow song, if it's a fast song, it doesn't need a pad. So I've got this fundamental folder that has pre-made pads. I usually use the deep, but you can use whatever. Let's say this song is in D. So I'll drag my D pad in. Now it's going to want to warp it automatically, and so it's going to sound weird. So we want to double click on this track again, and we want to deselect warp. So now that the track is normal, we usually have to turn the track down. So I like to go in this gain, turn it down about 10 decibels. Last couple things I like to do is I like to ramp up the sound. So you'll see these 2 dots here at the beginning of the track. If you're on A, if A selected, you won't be able to see those. So make sure in the normal view, and you'll see these 2 dots. Take the top dot and pull it over to the beginning of the loop. And then I like to go a measure or 2 after the loop, and I like to split that again using Command E, delete the rest, and just fade the rest out using that top little square again. So now this should loop seamlessly. Actually, I want to pull this up. You can pull it up to any of your keys sections just to make sense. And you might be able to hear it going, you might not. But that'll just play. Now, whenever you're done, you can just let it play. Click L to let the loop turn off and just fade out. What I like to also do is I like to come back here and put a marker here to where if I feel like if we end up ending and we're not close to the end of the loop, I will just hit the cursor over and will automatically just fade out instead of having to let the loop play out. So that's the basics. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we really need to cover. You might run into a few tracks that are very CPU heavy. They're very heavy on the processor. And there are a few things that we can do to make that better. Sometimes you're playing a track and it will stutter during practice and like will cut out and it'll just sound weird. So we can highlight some tracks. So I like to highlight a song and then go into this view down here by double clicking a track, highlighting them all. And if we go to this RAM button and highlight that, that's going to switch everything to being used and stored in RAM. So it actually makes it a little easier on the processor. Another thing that we can do, I like to do, is highlight all my tracks and the whole session, go to File, down to Collect All and Save. And that's going to localize every track to that specific file location, and that makes it easier for the Ableton session. Makes it easier for the Ableton session to know where your files are, and so it makes it a little bit easier on the computer. And so if you do those things, everything should run smoothly. I don't think there should be any other problems, and so should be good. That's the basics. Again, everything, I should have everything set up on the computer to work right, but that's the basics for now.